Usually when we talk about international trade disputes, there is this like underlying expectation of a massive standoff.
Right,
It
yeah.
gets framed almost like a medieval siege, you know? Like one side builds this giant defensive wall, and the other side just starts lining up the battering rams to knock it down.
It is a comfortable metaphor. I mean, it presents a very rigid binary conflict,
Yeah.
a pure test of political willpower, right? Where someone wins and someone loses right there at the border.
But when you apply that siege metaphor to the current landscape of the global auto industry, specifically Europe's attempt to build a tariff wall to slow down Chinese electric cars, the whole concept just completely falls apart.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if you look at a company like BYD, they aren't arguing with a wall. They aren't bringing a battering ram at all.
No, not at all.
Their strategy is to simply, well, buy a plot of land and move their entire factory inside the wall.
Which completely bypasses all that political friction.
Yeah.
We are looking at a fundamental shift in how global trade operates here. And really, our focus in this analysis is to explore whether Europe can take this sudden influx of foreign investment and force it to become actual domestic capability.
Right.
Or, if Europe's underused legacy factories are just going to become a highly convenient growth platform for their biggest competitors.
And this shift is exactly why you, as a consumer, and honestly as an investor, are directly involved in this dynamic.
Yeah, you have a real stake in this.
The headlines always treat this like a spat between Brussels and Beijing.
Yeah.
But it is actually a battle over where global economic value is created, and where profits pool.
Yes.
That competition dictates the future of your car payments, the availability of your local jobs, and even the performance of your retirement savings. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's look at the immediate pressure driving this geographical shift.
The tariffs.
Right, the tariffs. They're functioning like a massive price shock. If a battery electric vehicle is built in China and imported into the European Union, it faces a standard 10% car import duty.
Which applies to everybody, yeah.
Right. But recently, BYD was hit with an additional 17% countervailing duty.
And that term, countervailing duty, is crucial to understand. I mean, it is not just a random penalty they pulled out of the air.
No, it's highly specific.
Right. It is specifically designed by regulators to mathematically offset the financial advantage a company gets from state subsidies in their home country.
So they're looking at the perks, essentially.
Exactly. The European Commission looks at cheap land, subsidized loans, or grants provided by the Chinese government, and they try to level the playing field by adding that 17% on top of the standard 10%.
So before that car's tires even touch a European showroom floor, it is carrying a massive 27% tariff burden.
Yep, 27%.
It honestly reminds me of a toll booth on a vital bridge. Like, if you are an exporter, you are paying this huge toll every single time one of your products crosses the river.
And that arithmetic is just completely unworkable for a mass market product.
Right, because, a premium luxury brand might be able to pass a 27% price hike onto a wealthy buyer without them blinking.
Sure, but in the everyday EV market, a customer simply walks away.
Exactly. Or I guess the manufacturer tries to absorb that 27% themselves.
Which instantly ruins their profit margins. I mean, neither option is sustainable.
No.
So following your toll booth analogy, instead of paying that toll every single day, the manufacturer looks across the river, buys real estate on the other side, hires the local workforce, and just reorganizes their entire logistics route.
They just bypass the bridge entirely.
Economists call this tariff-jumping investment. The law hasn't changed. The political dispute hasn't been resolved at all.
Yeah.
The company just altered the physical geography of its business to render the tariff completely irrelevant.
I do want to challenge a really common assumption here, though.
Okay, what's that?
Well, the prevailing narrative around Chinese EV manufacturers, especially the giants, is that they are operating with these bottomless wallets.
Ah, yes, the infinite cash theory.
Right. The assumption is that because of state backing, they can just eat massive losses indefinitely, absorb any tariff, and drown European competitors without even breaking a sweat.
Right.
But if they have endless cash, why bother with the immense complexity of moving a factory across the world?
And that narrative of the bottomless wallet falls apart the second you look at their actual balance sheets.
The numbers tell a different story.
Very different. Industrial scale does not grant immunity from financial pressure. Take a look at the data from 2025. BYD's net profit actually fell by 19%.
Wait, 19%?
Yes. 19%. We saw their overall revenue growth slow down sharply, and their gross margin from automobiles dropped to 20.5%.
Wow. A 19% drop in net profit
Hmm.
completely changes the picture. I mean, that implies they are under severe domestic pressure.
Oh, the Chinese domestic auto market is currently trapped in this brutal, hyper-competitive price war.
Just a race to the bottom.
Exactly. It is an environment of constant discounting where multiple manufacturers are fighting for survival on incredibly razor-thin margins.
Right.
So when BYD looks at Europe, they aren't just trying to dump volume for the sake of market share. This is an earnings quality strategy.
Earnings quality strategy. Meaning what, exactly?
Meaning they desperately need overseas markets to diversify their revenue streams and honestly just escape the crushing balance sheet pressure back home.
Which means, moving the factory inside the European wall isn't just a logistical trick. It changes the fundamental identity of the car itself.
How so?
Well, it no longer arrives on a massive cargo ship to just sit at a port, right? It enters the market through a deeply localized domestic network.
And that localization is exactly how a modern automotive company survives. We really have to stop thinking of a car as just a machine that a customer buys once.
Right, the old model of just driving it off the lot and you're done.
Yeah. In the current industry, an electric vehicle is fundamentally a bundle of future cash flows.
A bundle of future cash flows. Let's break down the mechanics of that. When you say that, you mean the initial sale is just the entry point into a much larger commercial ecosystem.
Precisely. If you are producing the vehicle locally, you are in a vastly superior position to control the financing of the loan.
Right. You are the bank, too.
You can integrate the insurance, you capture the monthly software subscriptions, the maintenance scheduling, the leasing agreements, and, of course, the proprietary charging networks.
So it's constant revenue.
Localizing production allows a company to wrap the consumer in this commercial relationship that generates revenue for the next 10 years.
And the sheer size of the European market makes capturing those cash flows a strategic necessity. I mean, battery electric cars hit 17.4% of new EU registrations in 2025.
Which is huge.
It is. And that adoption rate climbed to around 20% in the first 5 months of 2026.
Yeah.
So Europe has clearly moved past the debate about whether EVs are viable. They are now actively deciding who is going to own the underlying economics of this massive energy transition.
But capturing those economics by building a factory inside Europe presents a massive financial paradox.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because setting up industrial manufacturing from scratch is incredibly capital intensive.
Oh, enormously.
You have to acquire the land, pour millions of tons of concrete, import the heavy machinery, navigate all the environmental certifications, and train thousands of local workers.
What's fascinating here is that the physical building is actually a liability at first.
Wait, it's not an asset immediately.
No, not at all. In manufacturing circles, there is a saying that an empty factory is just depreciation with a roof.
Depreciation with a roof. I love
It
that.
drains capital every single day until it is fully operational, churning out vehicles at high volume, and finally absorbing its own fixed costs.
And that perfectly explains the specific strategy we're seeing on the ground right now.
Yep.
Like, BYD isn't just wandering into Europe looking to pour fresh concrete on empty fields. They are actively hunting for brownfield sites.
Right, places with history.
Places that already have the industrial infrastructure in place. We are seeing their Hungarian plant moving toward production, and they are reportedly looking at Spain and France as really strong candidates.
And why those locations?
Because those locations already have the electrical grids, the heavy transport links, the permits, and crucially, a trained labor pool.
The irony here is that they are capitalizing on the vulnerability of Europe's legacy automakers.
It really is ironic.
Right now, traditional European car companies are bleeding cash, and it's because they are trying to finance two completely different technological eras simultaneously.
The old and the new.
Exactly. They rely on the profits from their internal combustion engine vehicles, but they are forced to pour billions of dollars into developing new EV platforms, software architectures, and battery tooling.
So they are stretched incredibly thin, which results in older factories sitting underused or even abandoned right at the exact moment that foreign competitors need a turnkey European address.
Yeah, the legacy automaker's financial baggage essentially becomes the new entrance strategic shortcut.
That is wild. But if we trace this back to the consumer for a second, shortening the supply chain and dodging those massive tariffs should, in theory, result in cheaper electric vehicles for the European buyer.
On the surface, yes.
Right, and on the surface, dropping the sticker price feels like a massive win for the public, who doesn't want a cheaper car.
The cheaper sticker price feels like a win until you look at the hidden mechanics of the financial system.
Okay, unpack that for me.
Well, automobiles are not just consumer goods. They are financed assets. Every single leasing firm calculates exactly what they project a specific car will be worth at the end of a 3-year contract.
The residual value.
Exactly. That projected residual value dictates the entire financial model of the lease.
So if a manufacturer localizes their production and suddenly floods the market with highly advanced EVs that are significantly cheaper than the previous generation, the older leased EVs lose their value overnight.
Yes.
It scales up the dynamic of the smartphone market, right? Like when a new phone comes out that is faster and cheaper, your old phone's trade-in value plummets.
But a car is a $40,000 asset.
Right. It's not a $1,000 phone.
And the consumer isn't the one holding the bag on that $40,000 asset. The leasing companies, the fleet operators, and the banks are.
Ouch.
If a bank projected an EV would be worth $20,000 after 3 years, but a cheaper localized model drives the resale value down to, say, $12,000.
That's an $8,000 gap per car.
Yes. The financial institution absorbs a massive, totally unexpected loss.
Which means they immediately react to protect themselves, obviously. They raise the monthly lease payments for the next wave of consumers. They tighten their lending standards, and the overall cost of borrowing goes up.
Right.
So a cheaper car on the showroom floor ironically creates a hidden financial loss deep inside the banking sector.
And this pressure does not stop at the banks. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it migrates straight into the capital markets.
And directly impacts retirement accounts.
Exactly. We tend to focus on the metal and the branding, the cool designs. But the auto industry is fundamentally an asset finance business.
Right.
If you look inside a standard pension fund, it holds shares and corporate bonds from these legacy automakers, their component suppliers, and the insurers who underwrite the fleets.
So if factory utilization drops because of new competition, or if bank margins collapse because those residual values on leased fleets are tanking,
the corporate bond spreads widen, dividends get slashed. The valuation of the companies held in your pension fund drops.
So the visible story is just the competition between car brands. But the real investor story is the massive migration of cash flow from the legacy combustion ecosystem into the electric ecosystem.
And in any transition like this, the player who controls the bottleneck of the new system is the one who secures absolutely all the pricing power.
Which brings us to the ultimate question for the continent. When a company like BYD successfully builds a factory in Hungary or Spain, does Europe actually win the economic game, or do they lose it?
Well, the outcome depends entirely on which version of localization actually takes hold.
Meaning there are different types.
Yes. We can look at this as a sliding scale of economic capture. At the lowest end of the scale, you have what we could call assembly without control.
Okay, assembly without control. That sounds like a scenario where European workers get jobs snapping the pieces together and local municipalities collect some tax revenue, sure. But the core intellectual property, like the battery cells, the software architecture, the high-value strategic decisions, those all remain securely outside of Europe.
Exactly. It's essentially just a foreign outpost.
Just a screwdriver plant.
Yeah, exactly. Now, moving up the scale, the second version is regional integration.
Okay.
This happens when local European firms start winning meaningful contracts within the supply chain. European engineers are hired to adapt to the vehicles for local regulations.
Ah, so it gets stickier.
Yes. Spare parts manufacturing, fleet management services, and battery recycling operations start to actually cluster around the physical plant. The factory becomes an anchor for a real ecosystem.
That sounds better.
Yeah.
But the top of the scale, I assume the ultimate goal for European regulators would be strategic depth.
That's the holy grail, yes.
This is the scenario where foreign investment is harnessed to develop truly competitive domestic capacity in the hardest, most complex parts of the supply chain.
Yeah.
We are talking about advanced semiconductor fabrication, raw material refinement, and core software engineering.
Yeah.
That is the only reality where foreign money actually transforms into permanent domestic capability.
But reaching that level of strategic depth is incredibly difficult.
Because of China, right?
Yes, because China already owns the bottleneck of the transition. The statistics defining the supply chain dominance are just staggering.
Lay them out for me.
Okay, in 2025, China accounted for roughly 70% of global electric car production.
70%. That's massive.
But more importantly, they control more than 80% of global battery cell production. They control 85% of cathode active material and more than 90% of anode active material.
90%. Let's just focus on those chemical components for a second, because that is where the real leverage is.
Absolutely.
The painted metal body of the car is practically irrelevant compared to the chemistry inside the floor pan.
Yeah, the shell doesn't matter.
Right. The cathode determines the battery's energy capacity, like how far the car can actually drive.
Yes.
And the anode dictates the charging speed and the battery's overall lifespan. So if a single nation controls 85 to 90% of those highly specific active materials, they don't just supply the industry, they dictate the absolute limits of its performance.
Exactly. That chemical dominance, combined with the sheer procurement scale of producing millions of units, means the true power sits upstream.
Upstream.
Yeah, the factory in Europe just makes the hardware visible to the consumer.
So when a buyer sees a Made in Europe sticker on a newly localized EV, that label requires a massive asterisk.
A huge asterisk.
It might be assembled in Europe, sure. But we have to ask, whose battery chemistry is actually powering it? Whose intellectual property governs the drivetrain? Whose data architecture is routing the navigation?
Which points perfectly to the second major bottleneck, software.
Right.
Today's electric vehicle is fundamentally a software-defined platform. The physical battery is really just a storage tank.
Just holding juice.
Right. It is the battery management software that determines how efficiently that energy is used and how slowly the battery degrades over time.
Which is critical for resale value, like we talked about earlier.
Exactly. And over-the-air updates allow the manufacturer to alter the car's horsepower, braking algorithms, and infotainment options long after the initial sale.
Meaning the commercial relationship, and crucially, the continuous transfer of data, continues indefinitely.
Yes.
We aren't just watching a competition between car designs here. We are witnessing one industrial operating system competing against another.
And the Chinese industrial operating system is built on intense battery integration, aggressive cost engineering, massive localized scale, and rapid product development cycles.
It's all about speed and scale.
Exactly. While the traditional European system is built on deep engineering discipline, premium brand prestige, and rigorous safety standards.
So a tariff wall might offer a temporary defense, but it cannot permanently substitute for a competitive operating system.
Oh no, it only buys time.
And how Europe utilizes that purchased time determines whether the policy is a success. But, there's another layer to this, which is the sheer political reality of building physical infrastructure.
The politics change completely once the concrete is poured.
Right. Because when a foreign company moves inside the wall, they hire local workers, they pay local taxes, and they take out massive loans from local European banks.
Yeah.
In doing so, they transform from an outside competitor into a domestic political asset.
Localization completely rewrites the balance of bargaining power. I mean, when they were merely exporting vehicles off a ship, they were outsiders asking for market access.
Just knocking on the door.
Right. But the moment they establish a physical factory, they are inside the domestic economy negotiating as a major employer.
That's a totally different conversation.
Completely. You start seeing local mayors actively lobbying their national government to protect the foreign company because their town desperately needs those jobs.
Wow, yeah.
Local labor unions demand the plant stays open. Domestic banks apply political pressure to ensure their massive corporate loans are repaid.
It is the ultimate insurance policy against future trade hostilities. Once you weave your business into the economic fabric of a region, it becomes incredible. So, given all this incredible complexity, how should you actually judge this transition as it unfolds? Like, when the next headline drops about a massive new EV factory breaking ground, how do you separate the public relations fluff from the economic reality?
We can actually break this down into a few crucial metrics. Really, there are 6 key things to watch.
Okay, let's hear them.
The first thing to analyze is the site decisions themselves. Are these companies making realistic acquisitions with achievable conversion schedules, like the brownfield sites we discussed earlier?
Right, places with existing infrastructure.
Or are they just announcing speculative projects on empty land just to generate favorable press?
Got it. And you also have to look closely at local content, right? That's metric number 2.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, Are European parts suppliers actually winning high-value engineering contracts, or are they just being handed the low-value assembly scraps so the manufacturer can technically claim it was built locally?
That distinction is vital, and alongside local content, the third metric you must track is battery sourcing.
Because the upstream bottlenecks dictate the power dynamic.
Exactly. Where are the battery cells and the power electronics actually being manufactured and refined?
Right. Then metric 4, there is the financial viability of the plant itself, looking at utilization and margins. Is the localized factory producing enough volume to actually cover its massive fixed costs? Or are they relying on margin-destroying discounts just to clear inventory off the lot?
Spot on. And for the fifth metric, you also have to monitor the broader finance ecosystem.
The banks and the leases.
Right. Look closely at the leasing rates, the insurance premiums, and those critical residual values. If the residual values collapse, the leasing companies absorb the damage, and the ripple effect hits the broader capital markets.
Yeah.
The financial foundation simply has to be strong enough to support long-term mainstream adoption.
Okay. And finally, metric 6, you have to watch the policy discipline of the regulators.
This one is huge.
Right. Are European governments actually using these tariffs and incentives to forcefully build out their own strategic depth and domestic capability? Or are member states just competing against one another, handing out massive public subsidies to foreign companies without requiring any real technological transfer?
Those 6 metrics reveal the underlying truth of the transition rather than just the PR spin.
Totally. So, to synthesize all of this,
Yeah.
we're not watching the death of globalization here. We're watching it evolve.
Yes.
The old model was straightforward. You build your product in a low-cost location, put it on a cargo ship, and send it to a high-value market.
Simple enough.
But the new model requires building your product right next to the protected demand. It is a massive shift from global seaports to inland industrial parks, where recruiting domestic stakeholders is honestly just as important as engineering the vehicle itself.
It's all about politics and permanence now.
Exactly. Tariffs might buy Europe a little bit of time, and physical factories might buy these foreign companies a sense of permanence. But ultimately, deep industrial capability, like controlling the battery chemistry, the software architecture, and the financial ecosystem, that is what decides who owns the future.
That is the core of the issue, without a doubt.
Subscribe to the Unlayered Global now, because this channel does not just explain the headline, it reveals the hidden system underneath it.
And as we close out this analysis, I want you to consider one final lingering question.
Okay.
We established that these modern localized vehicles are essentially massive rolling software platforms.
Right.
They are constantly mapping local infrastructure, processing consumer data, and receiving vital over-the-air updates from external servers.
Go.
So what happens if a sudden, severe geopolitical conflict erupts and it triggers a deliberate software blackout on a massive fleet of foreign-owned yet domestically produced vehicles sitting directly in millions of European driveways?
Oh, wow.
When the physical hardware is localized, but the software governing it is controlled from thousands of miles away, who really holds the keys?